from the technical and the X's and the O's, but I think the biggest thing I got from him was just how important you can be to someone else and how much you can help someone else just by being there and be, answering questions. I would ask him about the NHL CBA. I'd ask him about, why certain guys were getting sent down. I'd ask him about a prospect that was listed by Central Scouting or somebody that wasn't. I would see a goalie and say, hey, have you seen this guy? What do you think? And it really just helped me round out my opinion and my evaluations, as well as learning just, new terminology, new techniques, different skills, and obviously building out my drill book over those 2 or 3 years as well. I think it's a different type of game. Like I think that the girls enjoy the process more, and they're a lot more positive throughout the process. Like I was fortunate when I was at Stonehill with the women's program. Tara Watchorn was there, who's now at BU, and everything was positive, right? Like always positive. Uplift your teammates. How do you compliment somebody and make them a little bit better today? Like how do you give someone a high five and lift them up a little bit when someone falls or they fall short in a rep? Like how do you cheer for them? And I think with the guys it's much more, and the girls are definitely competitive, don't get me wrong on that, but I think the guys are much more competitive and about me and myself versus you and how I can help you be better to help.
Guys, I'm fired up. Really excited for this podcast. We've got our Clarkson University goaltending coach, Sebastian Ragno, here with us, a longtime Stop It coach as well. And Sebastian's got a lot of history, a lot of experience that we're going to dive in. We got so many different things to go over today, from the women's game to starting a new Division I program to going into a powerhouse university. And so Sebastian last year was the assistant coach, goalie coach at Stonehill, and Brown University on the women's side is a USA Hockey goaltending. What are you, a GC? Like, what's your official title with USA Hockey?
So I'm responsible for our local development for the state of Rhode Island, but I help out in a bunch of different facets. I do some coaching education as well.
The education as well. Yeah, that's awesome. So Sebastian's got a lot of history. There's a lot of different things we want to get into. And first off, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Dak. Excited to be here.
Adam, I'm sure along with Sebastian, you guys watched the USA gold medal game in the World Juniors, watching the winningest U.S. goaltender of all time in the World Junior, that's Trey Augustine. I'll start with you, Sebastian. Like, when you watch Trey, what do you like about him? What do you think makes him special?
I think the first thing for me is his composure, right? He treats it like a pro. He's been there. You could tell he has some veteran experience and has been around that tournament. And I'm sure behind the scenes, he's a leader for that team as well, from the backside. The other thing for me is Trey does an excellent job of getting back to his feet. I think almost any play, he springs back up. He's able to hold his edges. He's strong in his skates, but I think he's a lead in being able to understand when to move to his feet, when to move, on the ice, and how to get back to his feet and battle from his feet.
All right. So this is really interesting for me. So I went out to the USA Goalie Symposium in Minnesota, and they had an on-ice demonstration. And I don't think there was one rebound where the goaltenders got to their feet. Every single recovery was a push and then a recovery after they got to their spot. And I've thought a lot about this because when Joey Decord, my son, was in Charlotte, Leo Luongo was the goalie coach. And his philosophy was that your first default, your first move should be a push. And your read should be whether to get up or not. And for so long, especially since at Stop It, we work with younger goalies, there's such a big emphasis on the recovering to the feet. And now that I see what I saw in Minnesota, but thinking about it and talking with Joey, and Joey was like, that goal where there's a shot, there's a rebound, and you get halfway up and then you got to go down again. That doesn't happen if you make it your default. So when you said about Trey, how elite he is getting up, there's the whole understanding of when to get up and when to stay down, which I don't know if I talk enough as a coach about it. And this is something that I've been working on myself to and I'm just getting off the ice this morning, and it was like, hey, that puck's 4 feet from the net. Why are you getting up? Like, even though there's no one playing the rebound and it's just a training drill, I'm trying to be more conscious of understanding when to get up and when to stay down.
I think a lot of that stems too from understanding how a puck comes off of your body, right? If that puck's in your pads and you have a good pad angle on it, knowing that puck's going to go to the corner, it's going to be kind of distance from the net. Those pucks that are kind of in your pants or in your, the side of your chesty, and it's coming off you a little funky. I think
it's not going to pop off you. It's going to die.
Yeah.
No, 100%. I think just knowing how it's going to come off you and proximity to the net kind of deal, that's really the basis of it, right? Knowing when to push, knowing when to get up, and then getting back to Trey, he's just so elite at knowing when to do that. It's almost Carey Price-esque is what I've been seeing. Plays a lot within his posts, simple. He's athletic when he needs to be. But the one thing that I like above Carey Price of his game is he's got a little bit more jam. He's got a little bit more aggression to his game, which I love.
He doesn't block.
Yes.
Yeah, like you feel it when you watch him play. Like you like watching him play, and you feel like he's going to make the save. So I like, Sebastian, what you said about routine, like he's a pro, because I listened to the Rob Tallis in goal where he talked about, so the question was, well, Rob, you've had, Luongo and Bobrovsky and even Mokoon. And the question was, what is the difference between good and great goalies? And Rob's answer was routine. And he broke it up into two parts: the routine of taking care of your body and prepping your body ready for getting on the ice, and afterwards, and the mindset. And he thought the routines that go into being excited to play every game and being excited to have fun at practice and go out there. And, that's the mental part. It's a long season in the NHL. It's a lot of travel, a lot of ice time, and to have that enthusiasm, to have that mindset, and also to have the routines. And he talked about, they played remember that epic 5-period overtime that ended at 2:30 in the morning when they played Carolina?
Yeah.
After the game, Bobrovsky got on the bike, right? He played 8 periods of hockey, and he still got on the bike because that's what he did.
And that kind of goes into like our primers for the week too on the app, right? It's planning, right? You have to have a plan as to what your routine is, right? Like for younger goalies listening, right? Like having that plan and executing that plan every single time you're at the rink, you're doing your off ice, your nutrition, whatever it may be, having that plan is paramount. So Sebastian, just out of curiosity, goalies that you work with, especially at Clarkson, like what's their plan? Do they all have different plans? Do you kind of oversee a plan? Like what's kind of the deal as far as that?
So I like the word that you use there, primer. They all do their own thing. We have kind of a lot of diversity with our goaltending department. We have a 5th-year grad student that's our starter. And then our other 2 goalies, we have a senior that's been here for 4 years, and we have a sophomore transfer that was at Providence College last year. So they all come from pretty different backgrounds. We have 2 guys with a lot of experience and 1 guy with a little bit less experience. So when I came in, I didn't want to change too much, right? They've done it. They've been around it. So I kind of let them do their own thing. But the biggest thing I used with them was primer, right? Whatever you're going to do, it's got to be the same as a game. It doesn't have to be the exact same time, but you want to have that one thing that when you get on the ice, you do the same thing every single time, and it really sets that mindset that it's go time. For one of our guys, it's when he hits the door, he sprints out to the crease. For one of our other guys, it's doing C cuts between the blue line and the goal line, right, when he gets on the ice. Another guy, he goes right into his stretching, and he he's more primed with his nutrition and things like that. So each of them are a little bit different. But I think we have a close goalie department here as well. And I think they kind of feed off of each other as well, which is nice.
So that routine goes all the way to that first 10 seconds when they get on the ice.
Yeah.
So that's going to prime, that's going to set up the next thing that they do.
Yeah. And I think too, I know we've talked about this a little bit, Dak, but when they get on the ice, as soon as I start the warm-up shots, I'm very much a jerk to these guys. I shoot to score. I don't give them time to set every time, right? Like their warm-up is that of what a game is. Because to me, like you said, when you hit the ice 10 seconds in, you got to be ready to go. And if you're being told that puck's going to your glove, or you're being told that puck's going, off your pad, like you're reacting to what you're being told. You're not reacting to the shot, right? And our guys have to be ready to go every single night and every single day in practice too. It's a battle.
So let me follow that up, okay? So because we went a little bit from getting on the ice to right into our practice routine, and your practice routine is supportive of Steve Thompson's, right? That Steve likes the idea of going right into variability. So why do you think it's important to add variability right off the bat as opposed to getting warmed up, the traditional glove, stick, smother, all that kind of stuff? So why do you think that is, and what made you change from what you were doing previously?
I think the biggest thing for me was my shot. I don't know where my shot's going. No, I'm just kidding. But I think the biggest thing for me was I can know everything. I can kind of be that omniscient guy that's guiding it, and they don't need to know everything, right? So if we have a goalie, for example, and I want to really hit on his glove on a Tuesday, and then I want to hit on his blocker on Wednesday, we're going to change the drill, and I might shoot 60% of the pucks towards their glove, or I might shoot 60% of the pucks towards their blocker that day, or maybe every single puck goes in their pads, right? So they don't exactly know what's coming. I'm not telling them what's happening, but they have an idea of the pattern, right? You're going post to post, step out, off to your 45 shot. So they know the pattern, and from there, they just have to make the save, because at the end of the day, that's their job, to me, in my opinion.
Now, Marsh, Sebastian shows up for you day one. You're the goalie. You hop on the ice, and it's shot to score right off the bat, and you've never done that before. You're used to walking out there and getting warmed up and stuff like that. How would you react to that? And then let's find out how the Clarkson goalies reacted to that.
Yeah, so for me, it'd be like, oh, crap, like, this is different kind of deal. But for me, like, just going back to, like, the primer aspect of it, it's on the goalie to be prepared, right? Like, whatever you have to do, whether it be C-cuts, whether it be sprinting, whatever it may be, like, it's on me at that point, right? So if I'm that goalie, like, and I come out the first day, I'm like, oh, crap, what's this? Then I take a step back, and it's, all right, what do I have to do to be ready for that, right? So maybe I tweak my routine a little bit.
Do a little more Sensorina before you get on the ice.
Exactly, right? Something like that. But yeah, again, just like going back to younger goalies who are listening, right? Like it's on you to be ready to go when you get on that ice. So, but yeah, how did the Clarkson goalies kind of react to it when you first got there and started firing pucks by their ear?
Who's the new goalie guy?
Yeah,
well, I think my first two shots went bar down, so it was a little bit of luck. But I think it kind of hit them by surprise. They weren't sure what to expect, and then they probably were expecting a fluffy warm up, I would say. But when I got out there and I did it, and then I talked to them, they're like, "Oh yeah, that makes sense. Like if I'm going out, these guys want to play pro. If they're going to a pro dev camp or a training camp, and they're not ready to go as soon as the puck gets on the ice, like they're not going to make the team, right? And they're going to get sent down to the minors or whatever it is." So I think they were pleasantly surprised, and I think it's grown on them since we've gone on.
Now, after you did it the first time, did you communicate to them like this is what it is, or
so did they know it was coming or not?
No, they had no idea until after.
So did you like communicate
the puck
like
was
this?
in the net?
And no one told you to go, you know what, yourself?
No.
So like after the fact, did you like talk to them and be like, this is what it is every day, guys? Like, this is what it is. There's no
And is it that every day?
Yeah. So, I mean, sometimes it's a little less rigorous, I would say. Sometimes like I'm purposely putting pucks in their chest. Like today we had the weekend off. So today was a Monday. It was a little bit less rigorous. It wasn't necessarily shoot to score, but I was putting pucks in different places. It wasn't the same shot every time. But I think, after having that conversation and telling them kind of the why, they figured it out too, like, oh, I got to be ready. But after telling them the why and having that conversation with them, I think they kind of like it a little bit. And the other thing is when we get to shots with our team, like the guy's not coming down the wing on a, 4-dot stroke. He's not coming down the wing and saying, hey, I'm going high glove, right? They've got to be ready. So it's kind of that same idea, just extending that into the goalie warm-up.
You know what would be really interesting? Merce, write this down.
Mm-hmm.
Book Sebastian for 5 years from now. Right? It would be really interesting to see. So you go from a traditional warm-up to a variable warm-up to see kind of how that progresses, right? Does it stay like that? Is there a combination? Is there this different parts of the season, different parts of the week or leading up to the week? It'll be interesting to see how that kind of evolves, right? Because it's a different way of thinking in terms of adding variability right from the get-go. I think it'd be really hard to do in the NHL. I think they have so much that they have to deal with. Getting their touches in a nice controlled fashion is probably more important to them than maybe someone's playing at a lower level. So it'd be interesting to see if anybody does this at the NHL level. I don't know of anybody. Do you guys know of anybody at the NHL level that would go variable right off the bat?
I don't. The one thing I would say is we have the benefit at the college level of practicing 4 times a week.
Yeah.
As opposed to
Pro doesn't have that. They get one practice every 9 days.
Yeah.
It's either morning skates, off days, and then you get practices. They just don't practice enough. So yeah, and it'll be interesting to see how that evolves. Now, you were at Brown with the girls last year. You were at Stonehill. Now you move into a new team, and you're gonna knock the goalies, basically hit them over the head with a 2x4 when you walk in with that warm up. But can you tell us a little bit about your approach to how you walk in? New goalies, they don't know you, you don't know them, and now you have to build their confidence, and they have to build your confidence. What was that like? Now that we're halfway through the season, what was that like for you? And did you have a specific strategy that you were looking to try to build that, or what was your approach to it?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we had 2 new goalies. So we had 2 transfers. Our grad student and our sophomore were both transfers, and I was new as well. And we have a new head coach. So there was a lot of new kind of around our program. So I felt like there was more openness to some change. I'm not sure how things went last year, but the goalie that was here, he's not here anymore. He's not, he transferred out. So I felt there was some freedom to kind of make it my own and make it what I wanted it to be, which was nice. I think the other big thing for me was I wanted to establish the relationships, right? Not only one-to-one with each goalie, but also in the goalie department. So we actually did a steak dinner like right away in the year. Went out, just sat down, talked pretty much everything but hockey, tried to stay away from the hockey side, and, asked about family, asked about where they're from, things like that, and really established that relationship early. And it's definitely paid its dividends across the season so far. But I think that relationship has really, sprouted into, I can talk to them and give them my ideas, but they can also give me theirs. And it's not so much I'm demanding, it's more so pulling from them, and allowing them to do the learning and the teaching as well. And I'm just kind of here as a guide and to keep them on track.
It's really interesting you said, because I've always felt that Stop It that we had that culture where it wasn't just go do this drill, do it this way, then get out of the net, and I'm going to yell at you if you did it wrong. I really think that we built a company on that relationship, the ability for the kids to tell us what they think, and not necessarily to contradict what we're saying, but just give us what they're feeling or what they're thinking or how they think it applies. And I don't know if that's the same way everywhere, right? I don't know. You hear about those goalies that go to these teams, and if they question anything, then they're not being coachable. And I think there's Merce, have you ever been in a situation where you've had a coach like telling you to do something and you've tried to ask or see if they consider another way, and then they kind of look at you like, well, you're not listening to me?
Yeah, totally. It was my first 2 years of college. Guy had one way of doing things, and I was brought up doing a different way, and it was kind of an overhaul of my game in a way. And looking back on it from a coach's lens, I get it now. I understand where he's coming from, but it was definitely tough to collaborate when there's no real collaboration, if you will. So I think
because some coaches take it offensively.
Yeah.
If you question something and you ask.
Yes.
And I've always found that really weird, because that's the only way that I learn as a coach.
Yep.
I think we learn as much from the goalies as they learn from us.
Well,
keeps our game evolving.
Yeah, we have to trust them. They have to trust us. The way I frame it to my goalies in Worcester is, you guys are the head goalie coach. Like, you guys are out there playing the games. I only see it twice a week. You guys are the head goalie coach. I come in, you can tell me what you want to work on, and then I'm going to frame my practice around that. And that's kind of the way I get along with my guys, is like, whatever you want to work on, we're going to get everything done that everybody wants to do, but you guys got to tell me.
Sebastian, do you think in your role this year of being full-time and you're around all the time, that it's a better situation to build those, you have time to build those relationships and you have time to have those discussions, as opposed to showing up to practice, running practice and going, and you don't really have that time?
Oh, 1,000%. I think, we have the luxury of every one of our practices is filmed from every angle, so I can pull the behind the net film, and we can go over practice film, we can go over game film, we can watch NHL clips, we can, I can sit in a lounge, watch a football game and talk to them while we're eating a granola bar. The opportunity for those relationships to grow is, countless. And I think just being around the rink throughout the day, like if they show up to stretch or to work out or, hit the hot tub or the sauna, being able to just catch up with them for 2 minutes, say hello and ask how their day's going. I think it's super important. And again, I think it's really important to get away from the on-ice relationship too, right? We as coaches have to treat them more like humans than athletes sometimes. And I think that gets away from a lot of people.
Interesting. Yeah, it was funny. On Saturday we had a practice. We didn't have games this weekend at BU, and just had a chance to go for lunch with Chewy, and it was great. Just go for lunch and talk about NHL stuff and just life and the holidays, and it's great. But it's nice to have that time. And so I brought up Stonehill. Let's go Stonehill. You've got a new program that doesn't have the structure in terms of the facilities all set up the way that Clarkson does. What's the difference between coaching at a Stonehill and a Clarkson? What does an established program have that one of the new Division I programs doesn't have? It could be mindset, it could be culture, it could be, what do you see the difference now you're working for a powerhouse? What do you see the differences?
So with Stonehill, I think when we were recruiting most of our guys, we had no wins or 1 win or maybe 2 wins. So I think the biggest thing was we were trying to sell opportunity, right? You can come in, you can be an impact player. Whereas if you go to a different school like a Clarkson, you might, be kind of your third or fourth line. But now at Clarkson, we're kind of selling that as well. Like it's us versus a Michigan or a BU, right? Like it's that same thing. It's just a different area of where you're at in your program. But, we didn't have the facilities, so we couldn't be like, this rink's great to play in. We did have a beautiful campus. We had good academic programs, very good business school there. So we had some selling points, but we were trying to get a different caliber of athlete. That's for sure.
Speaking of getting athletes, so were you the first to commit a major junior goalie?
Yeah. Jackson Parsons.
Yeah. So can you tell me a little bit about that, how that came to be? And then what do you see is the future, let's say the short-term and the long-term future of CHL goalies and recruiting in the CHL, and how that impacts goaltending in general at the Division I level?
So with Parse, I was talking with his advisor, and he was talking to me about a different player, and we were watching a game, and I said, well, what about your guy that's playing major? Like, it was when the rule change hadn't happened yet. And he's like, yeah, I hadn't thought of that. Like, if the rule change happens, I'm sure he'd be open to it. So we kind of talked about it, and honestly, it was just kind of a perfect fit. He's kind of a local kid. He's been to Clarkson when he was a kid to play here in a tournament. He's got family not too far away, and he just kind of needs some more time to develop before he goes pro. He's having a stellar year, so it just happened that he's been a stud this year. But it was kind of a perfect fit, and his and I relationship has grown over the time too. Of he's excited to come, and I'm excited to get him here and work with him. And we talk every couple of weeks, just say hello, that kind of thing. But I think as far as the foreseeable future, I think there's definitely going to be an influx, but I think the curve's going to flatten a little bit down the road. I will say I think there's going to be more opportunity for high-end goalies in the United States when they're young. The other thing I will say is I think
can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, I think like with the Quebec League and the Ontario League, they were more hesitant to go into the United States. I think the Western League did it a little bit more, if I'm not mistaken. But I think the Ontario League and the Quebec League, they kind of assumed that the Boston kids and the Michigan kids were mostly going to go to the USHL or prep school. So I think now there's going to be some more opportunity for those younger kids that are, a really good 15 or 16-year-old to go and play some high-level hockey at that age, which I think will be good. I will say I think that, to your point, the games played become even more important, right? If you're going to go somewhere and be a 2 or be a 3, I think you should stay and be a 1 instead if you can. Yeah. Whether that's an NAHL or a NCDC or an OJHL, whatever league it is, I think it's so important that you get those game reps and you don't jump to these leagues before you're ready. Because only a small, percentage of those players are actually going to be ready to step in and take a role with those teams that's significant.
I think, like from our area here in New England, I think it's a great opportunity for our goalies to be able to go to the queue and play at a very high level. I think that's a great opportunity, and I think it's going to be really interesting because out of who this impacts the most, I think it does the goalies. Because from an NHL standpoint, your stud major junior guy is going to sign and go right into the American Hockey League. Your goalie, that's really the area that they struggle with. So you draft a major junior goalie, 2 years later, you got to decide whether to sign him or not. If what happens is what I think is going to happen, they're going to make everybody 4 years. That's what I think. So in the time that you get drafted to the time that you become a free agent is 4 years. So they'll hold your rights for 4 years, which isn't the case for major junior guys. It's only 2 years now. So I think what they're going to do this summer is they're going to make it 4 years across the board. And I think so many NHL teams would look at the opportunity to take a goalie, played maybe his 18 year and his 19 year, in major junior, then play his 20 and 21 in college, and then he'll be ready to matriculate into the pro ranks. That's how I kind of look at it. Thoughts?
I mean, just from a games played standpoint, it almost seems a little bit backwards playing your junior level schedule with 60, 70 games, whatever, and then going to a college schedule and then having
a 34 game schedule. Yeah.
Yeah. And then having to go back and play 40, 50, like seems a little bit backwards, but from a development standpoint, obviously we all know goaltending's an older position per se. It takes us longer to develop and be elite. Right. So I think that's the upside to that. The other side of the coin is that back and forth between the season lengths and preparing your body differently depending on what college you're at and kind of what their routine is in terms of weight room and practice schedules, game schedules, and then you hit your junior stuff and it's a little bit different. So it'll be interesting to see how the goalies develop over those 4 years.
So the thing is, like, the East Coast League, to me, is really a goalie league. Okay, if you look at who comes out of the East Coast League, goalies come out of the East Coast League. But there's something to be said. Do you want to go to a BU or a BC or a Michigan or a Clarkson? Do you want to go there for a year or two as opposed to going to the East Coast League for a year or two? So how would you look at that question? So, Sebastian, you've got a goalie and you are the general manager of the Montreal Canadiens. Would you rather that goalie play in the East Coast League or play Clarkson? And what would your reasons be?
So I think number one, when you're talking about development, yes, you're playing more games in pro. There's a shorter leash, right? If you're a goalie and you're not performing, you can get sent home. With college, there's a safety net where if you're not performing, you're still there, right? You're still sticking around. I think the biggest thing for us and our selling point in college, and I'm sure it's the same for BU, is you're practicing every day. You're lifting 2-3 times a week. You're getting bigger. You're getting stronger in those critical years. Whereas in the ECHL, you're playing games, but you're not really getting those development reps or the strength and conditioning as you would in college.
Or in a lot of places, a lot of East Coast League teams do not have a goalie coach.
Yeah.
A lot of them don't. And if they do, it's just someone that's popping down from the American Hockey League when there's a free weekend or whatnot. It's not necessarily the best structure.
Take it from the goalie's perspective too, right? Would I rather bus around overnight places and eat soggy subs on the bus and the whole nine, or would I rather be at Clarkson with these outstanding facilities, goalie coach every day, food's made for me, I'm chilling?
And the facilities and the way that they run Division I, the big time Division I college programs, it's elite.
It's
the way these kids are treated, it's and what they have at their disposal, it's awesome.
And not to mention, now you can get paid.
True. Now you can get paid.
Yeah.
I kind of want to wheel it back to your beginnings. So you're only 28. I'm 27. You've been coaching for a longer time than I have by a long shot. What kind of triggered you to get into it, and kind of take us through how you kind of developed as a coach?
So I got really lucky. I wasn't very good at hockey. That's what kind of got me into
Merce wasn't either. So you guys are very similar that way.
Better coach than I was a goalie.
No, I fell into some really, really good opportunities, and I just became a yes guy. I kept saying yes to the next opportunity, no matter what it was. If it was going to cost me money out of my own pocket, I would get around people I wanted to get around. I got really lucky. So I actually went to architecture school, and I graduated in 4 years from Kent State. Loved my time there. Played hockey for 1 year. Yeah, just a couple games. But then I was working in architecture, and I actually went home to visit my buddy, Nick Mish. I went home for holiday, and Nick and he's like, "Hey, I'm running a goalie camp. Do you have any interest in helping out?" He runs ETM goaltending. And I was like, "Yeah, you know what? I'll come help out. Like, I don't mind." So we did it, and it was actually like really successful. We had, 12, 16 kids. It was good and a lot of fun. I enjoyed it a lot. And I got back to Cleveland where I was living at the time, and I was like, "Hey, like, what do you think about doing that more frequently?" Like, we were talking about it, and he's like, "Yeah, like, what do you think about just jumping in and joining my company and, helping me grow it. And I was like, yeah, sure. Sounds great. So we named me the VP of ETM goaltending. And then from there, I just basically reached out to local organizations, and I grew our company. We were across 3 states whenever I was helping them out. So we were in Pennsylvania, Western Pennsylvania, Cleveland area, and then Fort Wayne, Indiana, when I was living out there as well. Ran 4, 5, 6 camps a summer and really grew it from that. And then, kind of just getting my name out there and getting to know different people. I got an opportunity in the Federal Hockey League with the Menor Icebreakers because they were local to where I was. I got some opportunities to get around some ECHL coaches. I got some USA hockey opportunities because they ran the camps out of Kent State for the Mid-Am district. And I just kept saying yes and yes and yes, and then eventually made the decision to move out east to work for Stop It.
Nice.
Best decision of your life right there.
Yeah.
And work for Clay. What was it like working for Clay? What did you learn from Clay most? What did Clay give you the most of?
Clay is one of the hardest.
He was the goalie scout for the Utah hockey club. Sorry if you weren't familiar with Clay Adams.
So Clay's one of the hardest workers I know. He's a scout essentially full-time for Utah Hockey Club, and he runs the Stop at Foxborough Center. He's different area codes, different time zones, texting us at 5 a.m. Hey, make sure this gets done today, or hey, can you do this? And he's always available. So I think the biggest thing that lured me to Stop It was not only how big the company is and the connections, but just the people. And like, I had an opportunity to interview for an ECHL goalie coaching job before I moved out. And I decided I wanted to go somewhere I was going to develop and be able to spring my career forward a little bit more before I was going to take that opportunity. I didn't feel I was quite ready for that as a coach, which was a really hard decision to make. So I wanted to go somewhere I was going to learn from somebody, and Clay was a great mentor to me. From the technical and the X's and the O's, but I think the biggest thing I got from him was just how important you can be to someone else and how much you can help someone else just by being there and be, answering questions. I would ask him about the NHL CBA. I'd ask him about, why certain guys were getting sent down. I'd ask him about a prospect that was listed by Central Scouting or somebody that wasn't. I would see a goalie and say, hey, have you seen this guy? What do you think? And it really just helped me round out my opinion and my evaluations, as well as learning just, new terminology, new techniques, different skills, and obviously building out my drill book over those 2 or 3 years as well.
Definitely. So like, what kind of things would you do with Clay just to kind of help you develop, like, off the ice per se? Just conversations you'd have? Would you go over video? Would he be showing you drills? Like, how does that kind of go?
Yeah. Before sessions, we would talk a lot about drills. He would send us some of the drills he was doing with like whether he got them from somebody else or maybe he's doing them with Curry College. He would send us some of those things. We could send him drills and ask for advice. But I think the biggest thing was like just like Dak said with Chewy there, like we'd go out for lunch every once and again and just chat. And we actually, not this summer, last summer, we would go to the gym every day together. So it was just an opportunity that, I could just ask him questions and we would talk and obviously work out. And not all of it was hockey. Some of it was life stuff too. But I was just able to kind of bounce ideas off of him and let him know where I was in life and what my goals were. And, he was more than willing to go above and beyond to help me get to where I wanted to be, which was that next step in hockey.
I love your story. I love how you came to Stop It and put in a few years and then moved on to Clarkson. And Cam Duminy is the same example. He was with us for about 7 years, and now he's at St. Lawrence. And Katie Burt, was about, I think, 3 years with us, and now she's at Providence, and it's kind of nonstop. I like the fact that, I think it's great. It's tough bringing in someone new, right? Because they have to build their own relationships with their clients, and it takes some time. So it always sets the company back when someone leaves. But I just think it creates another opportunity for somebody else. Now look at you and you leave Foxborough, and now Preston and Ship and James, now they get a chance to grow and become coaches and wear a sweatsuit to work.
Yeah, it's awesome. Best job in the world.
So that's a lot of fun. Now, I want to ask you, because I want to get your opinion on training girls at the college level and training guys at the college level. And if you find it any different, is there any different strategy that you found was better with the girls that maybe didn't work for the guys, or vice versa? Is there any difference between working with the two in your eyes?
I think the relationships are just a little bit different. Obviously, like you have to be more careful around girls. You can't say different things. And, you kind of talk to guys and you have that like locker room, like brotherhood almost.
Okay.
So it's a little bit more distant. It's a little bit harder to build that relationship with the girls. I will say once you get to know them, they're just the same. It's kind of funny, but I think the biggest on ice difference that I noticed was how much more is happening around the house as far as the girls. Like all the shots, because there's genetically not as strong, are coming from closer. So that initial shot is typically happening from top of the circles down. They're not afraid to take more wide angle shots and put it at your pads. So we did a lot more in tight stuff where that shot was coming from closer, as opposed to, with the guys, they do a lot more distance stuff and, off of a low to high, like that play coming from the point with net drive or traffic or whatever. So I tightened up their, tightened up the area that I would train with them a lot. I do think that girls develop smarter earlier, so they kind of get it a little bit quicker. The college level, you don't see it as much, but whenever I'm training the younger kids, like the girls are always smarter. They're more willing to understand what's going on, and the guys are more reliant on their power and kind of their physique to make saves. So that's one thing that I did notice you kind of have to be cognizant of as those kids are developing.
So I got a question. I hope I don't get myself into trouble on this one. Mercy's going to roll his eyes here. Here goes Dak again. But maybe this is unfair. Maybe this is just a Dak thing. But I always thought that the girls had more fun playing hockey than the guys. I've always felt like I was, coaching at prep school, and I listened to the girls all singing as they were doing their warm up and laughing and having fun. And my guys were like, don't say a word, all stressed out. And I just found in general, that they had more enjoyment from it, like less stress from playing hockey. And I wonder if that might be changing with the PWHL and the success, and let's say that league grows, and I didn't know if maybe their enjoyment was because they didn't have, everybody's trying to make it to the NHL type thing that maybe the guys have, but I always found that the girls had more fun than the guys.
Yeah, I could see that. I think it's a different type of game. Like I think that the girls enjoy the process more, and they're a lot more positive throughout the process. Like I was fortunate when I was at Stonehill with the women's program. Tara Watchhorn was there, who's now at BU, and everything was positive, right? Like always positive. Uplift your teammates. How do you compliment somebody and make them a little bit better today? Like how do you give someone a high five and lift them up a little bit when someone falls or they fall short in a rep? Like how do you cheer for them? And I think with the guys, it's much more, and the girls are definitely competitive, don't get me wrong on that, but I think the guys are much more competitive and about me and myself versus you and how I can help you be better to help me.
That's fascinating. That's a really interesting comment. Really, Merce, you guys have any perspective on this?
No, it's interesting. I do think there is a change a bit. I've seen it in like my older female goalies, just a little bit more serious. But like I find that they're laughing after goals a little bit more. Like, oh, I made this mistake. Like, how could I do that kind of deal? When it's a guy, it's like, what
the
am I
whole
doing?
world's going to come to an end. Yeah,
I think I'm a terrible goalie. Can't stop a beach ball. I should just hang him up, kind of deal. But like, yeah, no, I think there's definitely a little bit more fun aspect on the girls' side, just because they enjoy it, right? Like you said, they enjoy the process a little bit more instead of so focused on that last result that they're reaching towards.
Hey, before we let you go, I want to ask you a little bit about USA Hockey and the development model that we have here, the goalie system that Steve's put in place. Well, Phil, and then into Steve, and then just not too far from you on the Canadian side. They've had their struggles from a development standpoint. What do you think about our model right now? How we do things, the National Development Camp, the NTTP. So what are your thoughts on our model? And do you have any suggestions or ideas about how we can help grow goaltending and make goalies better in this country?
So I think one of the shortfalls with Canada, and I hope this doesn't happen with the major junior rule change, is they're putting 16, 15, maybe 17-year-olds into very high pressure situations in the major junior leagues right away, expecting them to perform. Mm-hmm. And you're going to get one out of every, call it three, out of every four that's going to be able to do that. That's an elite athlete.
They're going to survive that. Yeah.
So they're strangling themselves there a little bit as far as the nozzle. How many are coming through the hose and how many are able to actually succeed. And I hope that doesn't happen in the US. I've always said, and I'll stand by it. It's going to change now a little bit, but that young goalies should play in the North American League.
The greatest league in the history of goaltending. Yes.
Like you said about the ECHL, it's a goalies league. It's a league where if you go and you fail, okay, you go back to AAA or you go to NCDC or you go, whatever. But if you go and you succeed, then the opportunities are going to be endless after that. You get call-ups and you get drafted in the USHL and you get whatever. I think it's super important. I love Steve's model of it's all about the long game for the goalies, I think, in the US, right? How do you get them to be the best goalie they can be by, call it 25, right? Whereas I think, in Canada, that becomes a lot more, how do they become the best goalie for World Junior, or how do they become the best goalie for the Q or the O? And you see that a little bit too in Sweden and Finland, where they don't really count wins until they're 17 years old, right? The first thing that matters for them really is World Juniors and 17s. And I think it's all about the long game, and everybody in the goalie world wants to get to that end result. They want the polished product as soon as possible. And, we as coaches, recruiters, evaluators, and just a body of USA Hockey in general need to be a little bit more patient with the goalies and not write kids off so much. And Steve's, come up with a great idea of at your development camps, what if you got an evaluation sheet instead of just finding out whether you made it or not? Right? What if you actually had some feedback to work on the next year so that you knew what you needed to do to be at that next level, right? And what do those opportunities look like, and how do you earn an opportunity? And if you're a late bloomer, what does that look like? Could you make World Juniors or U18s if you don't make national camp at 14 or 15? Right? How do we find the best goalies that are going to be long-term goalies? And beyond that, we want long-term hockey people that are going to have kids that are in hockey, that are going to have kids that become goalies, right? And I love the analogy he uses of if we cast a net and every kid in the United States at least tries goalie once, we're going to have somebody that's going to be able to play in the NHL. It has to be at least one, right? So I think he's done a great job of expanding it and adjusting how it needs to be run all the way through, those significant camps as well.
One thing I find interesting about that is when you talk about high pressure situations so young, my question is, which nobody really has to answer here because it's more medical more than anything, but from a cognitive mental standpoint, is the brain mature enough at that point at 17, 18, 19 to handle those high stress situations right off the hop, or does it take that little while? Is that why goaltending is such an older position? You know, that's an
Merce, you ever get broken up with when you were 17?
Actually,
many times, several times.
Yes.
I think you answered your question there.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I was an absolute mental wreck, so that makes all the sense in the world.
Well, yeah, but and that's one of the executive function. The goaltending takes longer.
Yep.
It does take longer. I think this country has done remarkable. You look at the NHL right now, and they're picked for the Four Nations. They so many different guys they can pick from, and it's pretty exciting what they've done, and it hasn't been like luck, and let's just throw stuff. There's been planning and thought that has gone into it, and it's taken years to develop goaltending in this country. But I think we're at a really, really good place.
100%. So,
Rags, can't thank you enough for coming on this podcast. It's always fun to just sit here and talk some shop. I wish we could do this more.
I know.
Just really excited to see how you've developed as a coach, and really proud of what you're doing in the goalie community, and how helpful it has been to so many guys.
Thanks, Dak. I appreciate it, Merce. Thanks for having me on. This has been awesome. We'll have to do it more often for sure.
No, for sure. Might be our first recurring guest. You never know. But yeah.
And Merce, anything going on Stop It Goaltending we should know about?
Oh yeah, this week we have our primers, like I was talking about planning. It's essentially planning for success, right? Anything, all aspects of life, we can plan for something, and that will bring us success. We have a goalie power pep tune, which is Elvis Merzlikins, nice little pump up video. You watch it in the locker room before you hop on the ice. You're ready to rock.
I love the power pep tunes because it's short, quick. Just you're in the car, you're going to the game, boom, just you're watching an elite goalie, and you got the music going, you're getting fired up. I think it's really a cool kind of motivational tool.
And it's all positive motivational music. It's nothing negative, which I love. It's all uplifting. And then our long full video for the week, our advisor, Pat Shenna, did a great job on a goalie extra about the path to college hockey and beyond, kind of just showing you guys what you need to be in order to make it to that next level, right? Whatever your goal may be in college hockey or junior or pro, whatever it may be, he really lays it out for you and shows you essentially what the numbers are, where you need to be in order to make it to that next level where you want to go. So yeah, I think that about covers it for the app this week.
Awesome. Well, thanks guys. And Sebastian, hopefully I will see you at the regionals.
Sounds good. We'll look forward to it.
That would be great. Okay. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Rags.
I hope you enjoyed the Goalie Podcast by Stop It Goaltending U. If you haven't already downloaded the Stop It Goaltending U app, you can get your free 7-day trial at either the App Store or Google Play.